When you are different from others, one laugh or a look hurts worse than a blade. It was never the knives that hurt the most. It was the laughter, the kind that claws under your skin, echoing in your bones until you start to believe it yourself. That night, when the marketplace lights flickered and the crowd gathered, a single girl stood in the center of it all. Her skin shimmered faintly blue under the lamps, her eyes larger than the rest, and her silence heavier than their noise. They laughed. Children laughed the loudest, even the one she had once called a friend, the one she had trusted with her secrets, laughed harder than all. It wasn't the sound of joy. It was the sharp edge of betrayal, tearing through whatever little shield she had left. Why me? Why always me? The question pounded in her head, but her lips never moved. She just stood there, enduring it, as if silence might one day protect her. "Look at her eyes," one boy shouted. "Her skin! She's not like us." Another cried, and the crowd burst into a cruel chorus. She wanted to run, but where? Every street was theirs. Every corner carried whispers. At home, things weren't better. Her mother would shield her, whispering, "Stay strong, Ava. They don't understand." But her father, he was colder, always distant, as though he already knew a truth he refused to share. At night, Ava would lie awake, staring through the cracked window at the endless sky. She would whisper to herself, barely breathing, "I'm not alone." I can't be. Something inside her insisted there was more. Some place where she belonged, even if she couldn't name it yet. Days passed, weeks blurred together. The cruelty of the market became a rhythm, a ritual she could not escape, until one girl, bright-eyed, gentle-voiced, approached her after the chaos. "I don't care what they say," the girl smiled. "I'll be your friend." Hope flickered. Ava let it in, cautiously at first. She shared her days, her fears, even her strange dreams of stars and foreign skies. Trust blossomed like a fragile flower in poisoned soil. But trust has teeth. The next week, every whispered confession spilled into the marketplace. Every secret became a joke. Every tear became another reason to laugh at her. And at the center of it all was that same girl, smiling wider now, as though betrayal had always been her role to play. Ava froze. Her chest burned, but no tears came. She didn't give them the satisfaction. Instead, she whispered inwardly, "So this is the price of trust. Never again." Yet the nightmare had only begun. One evening, long after the laughter had quieted, Ava stumbled upon a conversation she was never meant to hear. Her parents, behind closed doors, speaking in hushed, broken voices. "She's not like them," her mother pleaded. "We can't hide it much longer." "We promised," her father hissed. "If they find out, they'll destroy her." "We'll all be destroyed," Ava's breath caught. Her hand trembled against the wooden frame. She wanted to burst in, to demand answers, but she couldn't move. Her heart already knew the truth, even before her mother whispered it into the dark. "She's not ours. She's not from here." The words struck harder than any laughter ever could. She stumbled back into the shadows, clutching her chest as if the weight of the revelation might crush her entirely. Not from here. Then where? Who am I? The next day, her eyes met the crowd differently. Every face in the marketplace looked like a mask, hiding fear, hiding cruelty. And she knew now, if the truth ever surfaced, they wouldn't just laugh, they would destroy her. And they did. The day came when whispers became shouts, when shouts became accusations, and when accusations became a mob. They dragged her into the square, their eyes burning with fear, disguised as anger. Her former friend stood in front, pointing at her with shaking hands, but smiling all the same. "She's not one of us. She's a monster. She must be cast out." Ava stood in silence, her chest heaving but her voice gone. She searched the crowd for one face, one sign of mercy, but found none. Even her father stood at the edge, eyes down, refusing to look at her. Only her mother wept, restrained by the arms of others. And in that moment, Ava understood. She had never been part of them. Not truly, not ever. Her body trembled, but her mind sharpened. If this is the end, let it end. But I will not beg. I will not break. The crowd surged forward, ready to cast her out forever. But deep above the market, unseen yet, the sky was already stirring. She returned home with heavy steps. The marketplace's cruel laughter still rang in her ears. The moment she crossed the threshold, her mother embraced her tightly. The mother's arms were warm, but that warmth could not melt the cold inside the girl's chest. Her father sat in the corner, silent, his gaze unreadable, his presence distant. Her mother whispered, voice trembling, "Don't listen to them, my child. They don't understand." The girl shook her head. Words pressed against her throat, yet none escaped. Inside, a voice echoed, "Why don't they make them understand? Why must I always remain hidden?" That night, she sat by the window. The sky was filled with scattered lights, stars watching from afar. She stared long and hard, her heart heavy but restless. I am not alone. One day, someone will see me for who I am. Someone will understand what I am, but hope is fragile. It shattered quickly. The next day, she returned to the marketplace. There, a girl approached her, the same one who had shown kindness before. "Tell me," the girl said softly with an air of secrecy. "I won't tell anyone. You can trust me." The blue-skinned child hesitated, but her heart yearned for connection. Finally, she opened herself. She spoke of the nights she spent gazing at the sky, of the weight she carried in silence, of how she felt she did not belong. She revealed the wounds she had hidden so carefully. The false friend listened closely. Her eyes glimmered, not with empathy, but with something sharper. The following day, laughter once again echoed through the market. But this time it was different. Now the children were repeating words that cut deeper than any insult about her appearance. They were mocking her secrets. Her confessions had become their entertainment. She froze. Her chest tightened as realization struck. The one she had trusted, the one who had pretended to be a friend, had betrayed her. She felt as though the ground itself had given way beneath her feet. I was a fool again. I am alone once more. This time, the laughter was heavier, crueler. It was not her strange skin or her large eyes they laughed at. It was her heart. They had torn open the place she had tried hardest to protect. She stumbled back home, her eyes hollow, her voice gone. She laid her head on her mother's lap. The woman said nothing, only let silent tears fall. The father's gaze lingered from across the room, cold and unyielding. That night, for the first time, the girl knew with certainty her life would never be the same again. The morning sun touched the marketplace, but for her, it brought no warmth. She walked quietly, hoping to slip past the memory of yesterday's laughter. Yet whispers chased her like shadows. Every corner seemed to echo with her own secrets, distorted and cruel. Then she saw her, the girl she had trusted. The false friend stood among others, laughing, her hand covering her mouth in feigned innocence. When their eyes met, the blue-skinned child felt her stomach twist. She stepped closer. Her voice trembled but cut through the noise. "Why? Why did you tell them?" The girl tilted her head, a smirk playing on her lips. "I didn't mean harm. It was just funny. They wanted to know, and I couldn't keep it all to myself." Those words struck harder than any blow. To her, my pain was entertainment. The child's chest burned, but no tears came, only silence. Around them, children leaned in, eager for more spectacle. One boy sneered, "So it's true. You stare at the stars at night, pretending they're calling you." Another chimed in. "Maybe she thinks she's from up there. Maybe she's not one of us at all." The laughter rose like fire catching dry wood. The girl's body stiffened. Shame wrapped around her like chains. She turned to leave, but a voice stopped her. Her false friend again, this time louder, crueler. "Look at her. Even her own family must be ashamed." That line pierced deeper than all others. She felt her world fracture. The crowd's laughter blurred, merging into a single, monstrous roar in her ears. Her mind whispered, "I have no one. Not even those I trusted. Not even myself." She stumbled through the streets, each step heavier until she reached home. Her mother rushed to her, holding her, whispering comfort. But the child barely heard. Her father's eyes watched from the corner, hard, unmoving, as though already weighing judgment. That night, silence pressed down on the small house. The blue-skinned child lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The wound inside her had grown, spreading like fire without smoke. She knew it now. She was no longer mocked for her differences alone. She was betrayed for what lay hidden in her soul. And betrayals, she realized, cut far deeper than cruel laughter ever could. It was late that night when the air in the small house felt heavy, almost suffocating. The girl lay awake in her narrow bed, staring at the ceiling. The faint sound of her parents' voices drifted through the thin walls. They thought she was asleep. But she wasn't. The narrator's voice lowered. "Secrets do not stay hidden forever. Sometimes they whisper themselves into the silence of night." She rose quietly, padding barefoot across the creaking floorboards, and pressed her ear against the doorframe. Her mother's voice trembled. "She deserves to know. The world is already turning against her." Her father's reply was sharp, cold, like a blade. "If she learns, she'll tell someone. And if the town finds out, we lose everything." The girl's chest tightened. Her heart drummed fast. What could they mean? What truth was too dangerous for her to hear? She pushed the door open just enough to see her parents at the table, a single candle burning between them. Her mother's eyes were wet. Her father's fists were clenched. The room smelled of wax and silence. Finally, her mother broke. "We cannot pretend anymore. She is not ours by blood. She never was." The girl froze, her small hand trembling on the doorframe. "Not theirs? Then whose was she?" Her father sighed heavily as though the weight of years pressed on his lungs. "She came from the sky. From the wreck we found beyond the hills that night. We were told to hide her. And we did. But she doesn't belong here. She never did." The candle flickered. The truth cut deeper than any insult the children at the market had ever thrown. Her body felt numb, her breath shallow. So the laughter was not just cruelty. It was prophecy. They had always sensed I was different, alien. Her mother's voice grew desperate. "But she is ours in every way that matters." I raised her. I held her when she cried. Does blood make a family? Or love? The father's silence was an answer in itself. His eyes stayed fixed on the table. The girl stepped back into the hallway, heart hammering, the walls around her suddenly too narrow. The house no longer felt like a home. It was a cage filled with lies. She stumbled to her room, the shadows of the candlelight chasing her like ghosts. Lying in bed, she whispered to herself, words no one else could hear. If I was never meant to be here, where is my place? Who will accept me if even my blood is a mystery? The night stretched long. Every sound of the house felt foreign, every memory poisoned. She closed her eyes, but the truth burned brighter than any dream. She was not a daughter, not a neighbor, not even human. And yet, as tears wet her pillow, a strange strength stirred within her. If I am not theirs, then I belong to something greater. If I am from the stars, maybe the stars will call me back. The narrator's voice tightened with dread, but the truth is a double-edged blade. Once it is unsheathed, it can never be hidden again. And soon, the world outside would see her not as a child, but as a threat. The day began with an unsettling silence that felt heavier than noise. Whispers had already traveled faster than footsteps, and by the time the sun rose above the rooftops, everyone in town knew. The girl was not one of them. She was something else, different, alien. The marketplace, usually alive with haggling voices and clattering stalls, became a stage of accusation. People pressed close, their eyes sharpened by fear and curiosity. At the center stood the small, blue-skinned girl with wide eyes that caught too much light, revealing every ounce of her terror. She had no chance to run. Hands had already dragged her forward. A rough shove and she stumbled into the open, standing alone where everyone could see. A hush fell. Then came the first voice, sharp, trembling with indignation. She is not one of us. Look at her. Look at what they've been hiding, murmurs spread, turning into a low growl of suspicion. Her heart hammered. Inside, a thought burned. This is it. This is what they've been waiting for. A reason to hate me out loud. From the crowd, a familiar face emerged, the girl who once whispered promises of friendship, the one who had listened to her secrets with nods and smiles. Now she stood taller, bolder, relishing the attention. She told me everything, the false friend declared, her voice loud enough to slice the air. She knew she was different. She admitted it. She isn't like us. The marketplace erupted in gasps and accusations. The betrayal landed sharper than any stone. The girl's chest clenched. Breath escaped her lips like shards of glass. So this is how it ends, she thought. Not with kindness, not with understanding, but with laughter and lies. The crowd surged forward, voices overlapping. A curse! A danger to our children! Send her away before it's too late! Someone spat at the ground near her feet. Another raised a fist, but held it trembling in the air, waiting for permission from the mob. The false friend smirked, hiding cruelty behind innocence. She folded her arms as though she had done something brave, as though betrayal could be disguised as courage. The girl's knees weakened. Her small body seemed even smaller against the wall of faces surrounding her. Every eye was a weapon, every laugh a blade. Inside, her thoughts whispered, jagged and desperate. Why? Why does difference always demand punishment? Why does truth feel like a crime? The crowd grew restless. Judgment was not a question anymore. It was an inevitability. A man's voice rose above the clamor. She must go. Cast her out. We cannot keep her among us. The people roared in agreement. The sound swallowed her whole. Her hands trembled, her chest tightened, yet no tears came. The pain had sunk too deep for tears. It was no longer sorrow, it was silence, cold and paralyzing. Her mother fought to push through the crowd, but strong arms held her back. The girl saw her mother's face, eyes blazing with helpless fury. That image burned inside her like a fragile candle, the only light in an ocean of darkness. The decision was made. The girl was no longer a child in their eyes, not even a person, only an outsider, an intruder, a threat to be erased. The marketplace, once filled with trade and chatter, had become a tribunal, and she, a child, was its condemned. The voices rose higher, demanding her exile, demanding her erasure, and she stood frozen at the center, knowing there was no way back. Night fell like a curtain, heavy and unrelenting. The girl had been confined, guarded by watchful eyes that saw her as nothing more than a danger to be contained. The marketplace judgment lingered in her ears, replaying endlessly, every jeer and accusation hammering her spirit. She sat on the cold ground, her small hands clasped together. She whispered to herself, not in words, but in fragments of hope that refused to die. If there is no place here, maybe there is somewhere else. Her mother had not stopped fighting. All through the night, she argued, pleaded, begged the town elders. Her voice, raw and desperate, could be heard from the streets outside. But mercy found no home in hardened hearts. Then, just as dawn threatened to break, a tremor of light cut across the sky. At first, the guards thought it was a storm or a comet, but the glow grew stronger, spilling silver fire over the rooftops. People rushed from their homes, their fear shifting into awe. The girl lifted her head. Something deep inside her stirred, an instinct older than memory. They have come. From the heavens descended shapes of impossible grace, ships that gleamed like living glass, radiant and soundless. They hovered above the town, casting shadows long and surreal across the earth. The crowd gathered in shock, their fear collapsing into trembling silence. A beam of light fell upon the square where the girl was held. The guards stumbled back, shielding their eyes. In the brilliance of that glow, the child's blue skin seemed to shine, as though the light recognized her, claimed her. Her mother broke free from the arms restraining her and rushed forward, embracing her child. For a heartbeat, nothing else mattered. The girl buried her face in her mother's shoulder, drinking in the warmth that still shielded her from the world's cruelty. Then came the voices, not spoken, but resonating through the air, through the bones, through the silence inside every person present. She is ours. She is not yours to destroy. The townspeople collapsed to their knees, their courage dissolving into terror. None dared raise a hand now. Figures emerged from the light, tall, elegant beings whose skin shimmered with colors that changed like waves. They walked with calm certainty, each step dissolving fear, each glance commanding silence. Their eyes, vast and unblinking, fell upon the girl with unmistakable recognition. One bent down, extending a hand toward her. The child hesitated, torn between two worlds, the cruelty she had endured and the strange promise of belonging that radiated from these beings. Her mother clutched her hand tighter. Tears glistened on her cheeks. "Go," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Be where you are meant to be. Don't look back." The girl's throat ached with unspoken words. How do you leave the only love you've ever known? But the choice was no longer hers alone. The light pulled at her, gentle yet undeniable. Before stepping into it, she turned. She looked at the crowd, the faces that had mocked, betrayed, condemned. And for the first time, she felt no fear, only pity. The false friend tried to shrink into the crowd, but the shimmering beings turned their gaze upon her. Their eyes glowed brighter. A ripple of energy washed over the marketplace. In an instant, the children of those who had laughed at her, those who had pointed and jeered, bore the same pale, ashen skin. The mark of cruelty, etched where all could see. Gasps filled the square. Parents wept, clutching their changed children. But no voice rose to challenge the visitors. The girl stepped into the beam of light. Warmth wrapped around her like an embrace, lifting her gently from the ground. Her mother reached upward, arms trembling, then lowered them slowly, knowing this was the only way. The ship's glow swallowed the child, and in the blink of an eye, she was gone. The marketplace remained frozen, every soul branded with silence. The sky closed, the ships vanishing into the horizon as though they had never been. But the memory lingered, carved into every witness. And in the emptiness that followed, a single truth echoed. They had not lost a monster. They had cast away a child who belonged to the stars. The market square was suffocating with noise, yet within that noise there was a cruel silence. People gathered, whispering, pointing, judging. In the middle stood the blue-skinned girl, her eyes wide, trembling yet unbroken. She had become a spectacle, no longer a child to them, but a threat, an outsider. Her former friend, the one who had betrayed her, stood in the crowd, refusing to meet her gaze. The betrayal burned sharper than any insult. The girl's heart whispered, so it was never friendship, only a mask. The voices rose. She is not one of us. She does not belong here. Their verdict was not written on paper. It was carved in their eyes, in their hatred. The crowd pushed forward, and she felt the weight of exile pressing down. Then her mother broke through the mob. Breathless, desperate, she clutched her daughter's hand. "I will not let them take you," she whispered. Her arms shook, but her eyes blazed. The girl, for the first time, felt her mother's fear as much as her love, and that love was unbearable in its intensity. The mob roared louder, stones were lifted, a cry of rage filled the air, and then the sky split open. A light poured down, searing, divine, blinding, shadows scattered. From the brilliance emerged forms not of this earth, tall, ethereal beings, their presence a command. The crowd shrank back in terror. No words were spoken, yet everyone understood. She was theirs. The girl turned to her mother, tears burning her cheeks. "Will you come with me?" she whispered. Her mother shook her head, swallowing her grief. "No, my child. This is your road, but know this, wherever you go, my heart follows." The girl screamed silently, but the light wrapped around her, pulling her upward. She reached out, fingers stretching toward her mother's trembling hand, yet they slipped apart, the bond severed by destiny itself. And then she was gone. The market stood in silence. The same people who had mocked her now, trembling, pale. One voice finally broke the hush, low and bitter. "We cast her out, but perhaps we cast out more than her. Perhaps we cast out our own humanity." Above another world, the girl stepped onto soil that welcomed her. Children who looked like her laughed, running to her, no mocking, no pointing fingers. For the first time, she was not strange. She was home. Her laughter, fragile at first, then blossoming, rose into the alien skies. She was free. But for those who listen to this story, the silence remains. What if the girl's journey is not finished? What if her return one day brings with it answers or vengeance? That choice is not in her hands, but in yours. Tell me, would you want to hear more? Share your thoughts. Leave your voice in the comments. Perhaps the next chapter waits for you to call it forth. And if you wish to walk with us through the next story, make sure you stay. This tale is not the last.